Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm here with Pedro Castillo, or as we call him here at Southport Christian Center, Pete. He's currently serves as our men's ministry leader and youth pastor. All right, so Pete in the past has described his childhood as having a hard life. Pete, do you want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Sure. Thank you, Denise. Yeah, I'm the second oldest of four children. We grew up in what people would consider poor, but we were never without. Unfortunately, my dad at the time was a big time drug dealer in San Diego County. So we always had, we were always cared for.
So the question begs, if you were always cared for and provided for, why a hard life?
Well, Denise, I idolized my father. I was always around him. I was with him. So all I ever seen was him collecting, people owing him. If he had to take away a car or a motorcycle because they owed him money, he would take it away. Unfortunately, sometimes I seen some violence, but I loved my dad. And so when young kids were dreaming of being um, astronauts or firefighters, doctors, I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted
Right.
power. I wanted to be a drug dealer,
Mhm.
So
So you guys were provided for. You had the means to basically live how you wanted. What started the change?
well,
When did it go downhill?
it we were without want, but there came a time where my dad got addicted to his own drugs. In that addiction, he lost everything. Um, he lost the homes that we had. We had to move in with grandma. Um, so at that time, I was already using myself. I was drinking, and this is at a very young age, already gang related. So, I mean, our lifestyle changed from having to struggling to get, and that's how we started going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
As far as my change, um, it came at about the age of 13 for me. My father cleaned up, gave his life to Christ, and he made a rule: anybody that lives under my roof has to go to church. Now, unfortunately, that wasn't my lifestyle at the time, right? I'm in the streets, I'm doing my thing. So I set out to disprove God.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to say, hey, Dad, there is no God. Let me get back to my life. You had yours. So I read Hinduism, I read Buddhism, I read the Quran, I read the Satanic Bible. I got into everything. I read the Bible itself too, because I really wanted to get out there. And in the end, I became a true believer of Christ, and joined the youth group, and I started to grow and learn.
Wow. I love how you said that you read everything and yet you still were led back to the Bible. But we know from your story, Pete, that that wasn't your complete change. When did that occur for you?
Well, as you said, it wasn't a complete change. Um, I was going to church. I kept growing from the age of about 23 to 26. I was a youth pastor for about 3 years. And then I started working. And I was taking on so many hours at the time and stuff that I had to pass on the baton, and I wasn't going to church. I wasn't getting fed. But I did believe.
Mm-hmm.
I still prayed. Um, but I also started to get the old bad habits of being around the buddies that I grew up with, still gang related. I was raising three boys, and teaching them God and everything, but I was living a lukewarm life.
Yeah.
I had one foot in the church, and I had one foot in the world, and you can't live that way.
The tension, I bet.
Yes, you can't live that way, because here you are teaching your kids God, and here you are showing them a different lifestyle. Like, that's not what you're showing and teaching me. You're doing totally different. So um, I struggled with that, and in that, you know, um, I used to pray before I went out and did something in the world that wasn't right, and because God brought me back home and I was safe, I didn't get shot, didn't get killed,
Right.
So I believed, hey, God's got me. He's on my side. I can continue to do this, and He's got me as long as I pray and still believe. And unfortunately, that's not the way we can live. You know.
So that Pete that you're describing sounds so different from the Pete that we know here today. So I have to ask, when did you truly submit? What did that look like for you if you were seemingly getting away with things and God still had your back?
That was the big timeout, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting away with so much that God finally said, it's timeout time. You ain't doing right. So in 2019, for the first time in my life at the age of 45, I was arrested. Ended up in jail, taken away from my family. And basically, the question in my heart that I felt God gave me was, this lifestyle or serve me? And I decided to serve Him. From that day in that cell, I started to minister to my cellmate, who was a younger gentleman at the time. It went from ministering to him to an everyday prayer group to an everyday study, and then it became church. And it grew, and God grew in me, and it became a church because not only was I teaching, but I was also building disciples. And it got to the point where even at times in the jail when it was lockdown time, and I would have these prayer meetings, the guards would even allow people to come out of the other dorms to just attend this.
Oh, wow.
And then when it was done, they would go back and get locked down to the dorm they belonged to. So God was working there. And so I did this I was supposed to be in there 24 months. God blessed me, got me out earlier. So for 15 and a half months, I served the Lord completely. When I was released, I came straight here to Southport Christian Center, which was my home church to begin with. And I started to assist with the men's ministry and became a men's leader. Then God put the youth in my hands.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for it.
They found you.
But He gave it. He gave it to me. But I knew why. Because I had a hard young life. And I seen it from that point, and now I see it from God's point. And I can't make choices for them. I can't change them, but I can give them the truth of what God says to have the capability to make the right choice. And that's when I truly submitted to God and gave it all to Him and have not looked back.
Amen. That's amazing to hear. I love how you described your walk previously as being lukewarm, and yet in those 15 months that you're away, God really lit a fire under you. He really disciplined you to, when you came out, you were ready to be the youth leader. You were ready to be the men's minister and help disciple the youth and the men of our church. Just one more question for you, Pete. Hopefully the easiest one so far. Any more thoughts of living a lukewarm lifestyle?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm on fire for God. Yeah. I'm hot for God. He says, be hot or cold, and I am hot. And, I have a strong church around me. I have a strong men's minister that I work with, that if my fire seems to dim down in any way, which it hasn't, he picks me up and I pick him up, and together we pick the men up. Wow. And even though I'm the youth pastor, the guidance I get from the different ministers, the different leaders, it helps me to bring more to the youth, because it's not just about my lifestyle, but each youth has a different lifestyle. And so do all the people of this church. And learning their testimonies has helped me not only with my own testimony to the kids, but to reach out to all the youth, not only in our church, but in this city. Wow. And so, hot for God.
That's amazing to hear. Well, our prayer for you today will be that God will continue to light that fire in you, keep the oil in your lamp burning. You're such a blessing here in this church. And thank you for sharing your testimony here today with us.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
I think we got it.
That was good. That was good.